Welcome, everyone, to the Friday, February 4th edition of the Signals from Mars live stream. We have a stick twirler on tonight's show.
Not really, but we are going to talk about sticks. Not the bands.
Not the band. I said, well, you'll have to talk to Mr. Striegel about them. I wouldn't be able to help you out. We want to say hello to Jose in Connecticut, who's joining us, and Jeremy, who was followed over from the Fireside show, which was on before this. And there you go, Johan as well. Johan joined us for the first time. It was a lot of fun. Johan was sticks big in Sweden.
That's the band I was trying to think of when he was mentioning all these AOR bands.
Right?
I mean, Styx kind of fits into that now. Yeah, that's a great question. Styx in Sweden.
Styx in Sweden. There you go. What was Styx in Sweden a thing? So
have to wait to find out.
So wow. So seeing you from this different view, seeing that you have rototoms behind you.
Yeah. Let's get a look at the kit here.
Yeah.
There it is in all its glory.
Yeah, absolutely. So Johan is saying no, they were not.
Of course not. How about In-N-Out Burger, Johan? Are they big in Sweden?
There's only 6 In-N-Out burgers in the entire world. They're all in California. I think there's one in Arizona and one in Nevada, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's actually a couple in Utah now, believe it or not.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, all these Californians that are leaving California and moving to these other places, they're bringing In-N-Out with them. So there you go.
I remember watching, or actually listening. It was the old Wall Street Journal podcast that they used to have in the morning with Gordon Deal. And they interviewed the original owner, who now has passed it on to his niece, I believe. I think she runs the company. But back then, he basically said, hey, there's only 6. We don't intend on going beyond 6, because that way we can control the quality of what we produce. And he said at the time that the reason behind that is that they go to markets in the morning to get potatoes and to get meat, and they want to make sure that it meets all of their quality control. And then at the end of the day, if anything is left over, they donate it all to food banks. So yeah, sounds like a good setup to me. And when we were out in California, we had In-N-Out on more than one occasion. We loved it. So
there you go. Yeah, if you don't like an In-N-Out burger, that says more about you than anything else. What's from where you grew up, what was the big burger place that, everybody loved?
Well, see, the thing is, we really only had McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's. At least in my area, Wendy's came in like the 80s. We had, when I was a kid, Arthur Treacher, which was fish and chips. That disappeared in the early 80s. We had Stewart's, which was it was like the old 50s drive-in feel, where you'd pull up in your car and they would have waiters and waitresses come up to your windows and serve you. They would put the tray on your window, like what you would see in Happy Days and all that stuff. But for the most part, we didn't have a lot of, I think in California, there was a lot more stuff than we had. Like Sonic didn't exist until the 90s. I'm trying to think of what else. Well, Arby's, and there used to be Roy Rogers as well.
Yeah, I've seen them back east.
Yeah.
Their food's pretty much crap though, right?
Their burgers were all right. The one thing that they had was they had a fixin' station, so you could put whatever you wanted on the burgers.
Nice.
I forget who absorbed them.
Hmm.
Trying to think. Obviously, we had Kentucky Fried Chicken. Boston Market came later, Boston Chicken, then Boston Market when they changed the name. Taco Bell. Trying to think what else, but there are things like Target, for example. We didn't get Targets until the 90s, and I remember I was in college radio, and one of my contacts was like, "You guys don't have a Target?" Like, nope, we have Kmart's. Like, yeah, Kmart's are cheap. We have Targets. They're much better. It's higher quality merchandise.
Well, they're still around, so what can you say? Kmart, not so much.
Kmart's done, and Sears is about to go under, aren't they? If they haven't,
yeah, they pretty much have. I mean, they're kind of exist in a weird alternative world. So I think Johan's sitting there going, I have no idea what these guys are talking about.
Fuddruckers, yeah, Fuddruckers is another one. Well, then the Fuddruckers fits in with the Red Lobsters of the world and Olive Gardens and
okay. What about Shake Shack? Was that an East Coast thing? Do you know?
Not in our area. We didn't have Shake Shack.
All right, I don't know what the history of that place is. My son Nathan, he loves Shake Shack, and
okay. Popeyes is another one. Whataburger.
Yeah, I've never eaten a Whataburger. At all the times in Texas, I usually go for Mexican food when I'm in Texas or Tex-Mex, just because it's so good. But I love eating in Texas. Barbecue is really good there too. So, all right. Well, enough of the food channel.
Yes. Let's switch on over.
Who doesn't like food?
Well, if you don't like it, then your bones on the, you're dust and bones.
There you go. I mean, you look at most of the YouTubers out there that are doing food stuff, man. Those are the guys that are making it big. Us in the rock business, we're struggling, man. We're scratching for everything we can get.
So let's see. Jeremy went to Olive Garden in Orlando. I had trouble getting back in the car. I was so full. Just so you know, Jeremy, Olive Garden is owned by the same company that owns McDonald's. They own McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, I believe Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I'm not sure what else, but because I remember I worked in a McDonald's. And what would happen was that we were allowed to exchange food with the other restaurants because they were part of the same corporation, and also the same local owner, the same person that owned all the McDonald's in the area owned a lot of the other fast food places. So
I kind of think Jeremy was going to say I had trouble getting back to the hotel in time to make it to the bathroom, but that
there you go.
Speaking of which, I had a guy today. I apologize for my appearance. I've been up since 5 a.m. and saving lives as I do, and wearing my doctor outfit. This thing used to fit me back in the day. Holy crap! I could actually button this thing up. Oh, by the way, hey, new Saxon album out today, kids. So yeah. Wheels of Steel. But yeah, this, I think you might see this as CEO Dave's lab coat from back in the days when he worked at a laboratory for Caterpillar that makes big diesel engines. He was the chief oil analysis person there.
Oh, wow.
And back when I was in the 80s in my band Paint Your Dog, I had this idea of it would look cool to wear like a big long coat on stage. This is before any of those Duran Duran guys or any of those 80s guys did it. Okay. I did it first. Okay. I'm going to take claim. But you can see there's dog prints on here. We actually we had a dog walk through paint and then walk on this coat here. So this is part of my getup. God, I was a lot smaller back then. It's weird how that happens, isn't it?
So you're saying you predate the Doctor from Prince's band?
Yes, definitely. Well, he was dressed as a doctor.
His name was Doc. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going for style, and you couldn't buy this kind of thing. Well, not here in Utah anyway. I mean, we used to shop in the women's sections of the department stores, trying to find stuff to wear that was kind of interesting, cool, whatever. This is 84, and of course the women, when we were in there that worked there, they just thought it was awesome that we were wanting to try on all these things and then finding stuff to fit us. Of course, I was a lot smaller back then. That was always a trick. You had the big shoulder pads and all that kind of stuff going on. And but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, there's a lot of girls wanting to take us into the changing room, and those are good days, man. Really good times. It was good to be young and be in a band,
Johan, was Paint Your Dog big in Sweden?
It is at his house, thank goodness. He's our biggest Swedish fan, and thank you for listening, Johan. I appreciate that. Yeah, the music actually was really good. It was a great band, great fun guys. We had a good time. We played a lot of gigs and recorded some really, really cool music. Wrote and recorded some great music. So yeah, the 80s were great. I love the 80s. Cool. But yeah, now it's 2020s.
2022, New Year's Yarg.
Crazy. Yeah. So we're gonna start off this year. So yeah, going along with food stuff. I had this guy today, his wife called because he wasn't feeling well this morning. So she thought, well, I'm going to give him a bunch of zinc and vitamin C to take to work, and didn't give him proper instructions. So he ate it all. Excellent. And then he went to a restaurant here called Crown Burger, which if you're ever in Utah, you got to eat at Crown Burger. They are legit good. Greek people, and the burgers there are fantastic. But this poor guy, when he was at the Crown Burger, that's when everything kicked in his gut, and he had stuff coming out both ends. And so, yeah, she thought I poisoned my husband. And yeah, well, she did. But yeah, it's like, I didn't think he'd take them all at once. I gave him enough for a week. And I said, well, it's Friday. Give him enough for one day. He's a man.
Couldn't she have given him a Smint, which has zinc and vitamin C? Just tell him have one every 4 hours.
Yeah, even that can be rough. But anyway, so yeah, he came from the Crown Burger. He came home mostly to change clothes because he destroyed everything he was wearing, and also because he was not fit for duty after that. So that was a good one. This is how my day started out. So that, and then
so many things to take in. He went from the crown to the throne.
Yes.
To not being able to be on duty after all of his duty. So
Victor, this is why you are the best host on the internet. Nobody can touch you, and this is why everybody needs to join your Patreon so they can partake of this kind of witty banter on a regular basis.
Yeah,
what would we do?
I appreciate your sentiment. I would hope that others would think the same, but like I said, the tight-knit group that we have is awesome, and hopefully we can slowly but surely expand it.
Yeah. So the first call I got during the 6 o'clock hour was a woman who said, and she had an accent, and I can't do her accent. I don't even know what it was. But she started off by saying, I thought I was drinking coconut water, but it was a glass of bleach. And so this did not come anywhere near her rear end.
How does everyone end up drinking bleach? How do you mistake? I mean,
he had it in a drinking glass. Why? I didn't even go down that road.
I mean, do they have the old, again, the old McDonald cups that are tinted where they can't tell that they poured bleach into it?
Well, if you look at it, I guess it is kind of yellow tinged, but and let's face it, the sun wasn't up yet. Okay.
Didn't you smell it though?
Yeah, she said she drank 4 ounces of it before realizing it wasn't coconut water.
Before realizing. Okay, so was she? Yeah, Jeremy, you are correct.
I didn't ask her who she voted for.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the train of thought here. This is similar to the lady whose kid drank it when she was trying to bleach her anus. At what point, again, that was story A and story B. She could have, left story B out because it kind of had no consequence. Just say, hey, my kid drank bleach. In this case, I drank 4 quarts before realizing that what I was smelling and tasting was bleach. A, did she recently have COVID and, lost all taste of smell and taste?
Yeah.
Okay. Was she asleep? Was she drunk? There's a few things here. Had she have been, I don't know, partaking in something else where her sense of smell and taste are just so messed up that she couldn't tell it was bleach? But we've talked about this before, bleach, chloride, chlorine, it all kind of smells alike and tastes alike,
Well, in our business, you learn not to ask why. It's just, you just marvel in the magnificence of what people are willing to do and then share. So it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, so my day started off just fantastic. I was very happy with that. But yeah, also why I'm not a guzzler, I'm a sipper.
Yeah, I just got this, guys, before the show. I did fill this up with some bleach. I've gotten almost it's 1.2 liters of bleach. I think that I drank 100 milliliters of bleach. What is that? A third of a quart or a third of a gallon, whatever that may be. I don't have it in my head, but anyway, yeah, I'm now realizing that I was drinking bleach. So bottoms up with the bleach.
I'll drink to that.
There you go. So what happened with Bleach Woman?
She vomited.
Okay.
So as you would, if a normal person drinks bleach, they throw up. And her throat was sore, and that's pretty much what you would expect. She said her stomach was hurting, so of course we're gonna keep an eye on her. She'll be fine.
Yeah,
she'll be totally fine.
And as Jeremy is saying in the chat, don't do this at home, folks. This is satire. We are being a bunch of, to quote, and I forget the episode of The Young Ones, but one of the characters said, "Stop being a smart aleck bastard." So yes, we are trying to be.
No, we're here to save lives. I mean, that's rock and roll is going to save the world.
Yes.
Which
heavy metal, top of the class, stuff the media up your arse. Don't get your cock out, Dan. Hey, don't confuse him, Spider.
Sorry, go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, you did a yesterday and today in your your Victor M. Ruiz podcast this week. That was perfectly timed. So.
Well, it wasn't done purposely. It just kind of happened. That was like osmosis. The planets lined up and, just a flicker of light took place. And it kind of, lined up to where the Dave Meniketti email had come in at the same time as I was reading the story or whatever. And I was able to shoehorn the yesterday and today or Y and T comment there.
You know what's funny about Y and T? When I was a wee lad, there back in the 70s, in the late 70s, we go down and hang around on Sunset Boulevard and hit all the clubs on Santa Monica Boulevard. And I'd often see yesterday and today on the marquee. And I'm like, what is the deal with these guys? There was a picture of Dave Meniketti with a flying V. And I figured, well, if anybody plays a flying V, they got to be rocking, right?
Right.
And then somebody said, oh, no. They're like a Beatles cover band. Because I guess the name yesterday and today. And so I never looked into them because of that. Like I don't even need the original Beatles, let alone a cover band. And and then later I found out, holy crap, these guys are not the Beatles.
That's your typical case of one of your friends trying to be a know-it-all and talking out of the right side of their arse and being all important. Well, it's yesterday. Obviously, it was a Beatles song. So the band yesterday and today, they did part 2 of the song yesterday. So they play the song yesterday first. They play today after, and then the third song in the series is tomorrow.
Tomorrow never knows. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So I missed out probably on some incredible shows because I'm sure they were awesome back then.
We could be talking about how you saw Y&T in a porta-john somewhere off of Santa Monica Boulevard.
I know. It's pretty disappointing.
Jesus.
The first time I did see Y&T, though, and I wish Steve I don't know if Steve's out there lurking, but was warming up for Twisted Sister. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, they were really, really good. I was on the Rock and Roll's Gonna Save the World tour, so it was great show. They had the really nifty outfits and everything. I think Dave Medichetti was dressed in pink, which is pretty hilarious. There's a video out there somewhere of that tour.
So that means that was what, Come Out and Play by Twisted Sister?
Yeah, that was when Twisted Sister first broke, so that's why they're headlining. It was Twisted Sister, then Y&T, and the warm-up band for all of that was Dokken, and they just released Tooth and Nail.
Okay, so earlier than what I'm saying.
Yeah. So Dokken, when they hit the stage, oh my gosh, they were unbelievable. I mean, they were just on fire. George Lynch, what a great band. So I went out, of course, and bought that album right after the show, and then couldn't find their first album anywhere. It was really tough to find at that point. And found out it wasn't near as good. So I still think Tooth and Nail's their best record. So great.
Yeah. I actually listened to Tooth and Nail not too long ago. For me, I do. Not that any of their albums are flat out bad, although people would argue that maybe Shadow Life isn't that good. I think Tooth and Nail and Back for the Attack are probably their 2 best albums. More than anything, because the albums are good from front to back. I think Under Lock and Key, although it has a lot of hits on there, has a lot of filler. And I never really cared for the first album outside of, Breaking the Chains. I mean, Paris is Burning is okay, but the rest of the album is just kind of okay.
Well, I mean, we all know those songs have been sitting around for quite a while. Dawn had been, those are all just Don Dokken himself.
Yeah.
And, he was still filling things out. So getting George Lynch, that was the magic sauce for that recipe right there. And of course, Jeff Pilson didn't hurt being in the band either, because he's got a good ear for writing stuff. And they brought a lot to the band. Yeah. But back then Don could really sing. Oh my gosh. I'm going to say that 1984 or 1985, he was like one of the best singers in rock. I mean, as far as the great tone, hitting everything where it should be, great scream, just very easy to listen to. It's like if you didn't like his voice, then something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
No.
Well. Yeah, that live album they released a few years ago was such a turnoff. But I mean, I like the studio stuff that they've done with John Levin. I know that I get into these conversations with people. Without Lynch in the band, they're no good. No, they've released a lot of good shit without George Lynch in the band. And the thing too is that George has put out a lot of crap too. There's good stuff. I mean, those first 2 Lynch Mob albums are just great. But then after that, it's really hit or miss. It's really good material or really shitty stuff. And then he just floods the market with so many things, with a lot of these, Frontiers albums that he's here's a project with the singer of this, the bass player from here, and the drummer of this other band. The Michael, he's done Sweet and Lynch, and he's done the Ultraphonic with Corey Glover from Living Color. He's done Dirty Shirley with Whitesnake's future lead singer. He's done a lot of different stuff where it's like, fuck, if instead of putting out 40 new songs a year, put out 10 good songs, and I think people will be happy with that stuff. But what do I know?
Yeah, well, who knows? I think his having Andrew Freeman in the band, even though he still owes you money, I think that's a great move by George, because Andrew is such a great live singer, and not only a great singer, but he's a great front man. I don't know if you've ever seen him fronting anything.
In video, I've seen him perform on a video. Not to offend Rob Rowe, but I've seen many a band live, but on VHS and DVD.
Is Rob hiding out there? I can't.
No, he's not hiding behind his mic today. I know he responded when I posted. He said, awesome or sweet or something like that about mentioning that you would be on.
Speaking of Sweet, I know you're not a huge fan of Michael Sweet's voice. I can't say you're wrong there. Although I do have to say that his singing on the Sweet and Lynch stuff, I think is, at least for me, it is significantly more palatable. I think he could find a tonal range that would actually be okay. But God, that thing, the Sunbomb thing, Tracy Guns did. Oh my gosh! If he'd have got Andrew Freeman to sing on that album, it would have been
awesome.
100 times better. 100 times.
Oh
I
my
can't
God.
listen to it. It's really tough to listen to.
Yeah,
It's hard.
The single that they released, I was the guitar part starts up. I love Tracy as a guitarist, and I'm like, oh wow, kicks ass. I get into the song. I get into the 30 seconds of the song. And I'm like, I can't do it. This is just horrible. This is like going in for having a colonoscopy done on my ears all of a sudden. I can't take it. And I know that Michael's a really nice guy. I know people that know him, and he's great to them, and he's a great interview to people. But I've never wanted to speak to him, only because I'm not that big of a fan. And I remember back in the day, there was a friend of mine who was, Stryper's the best band ever. They're for God, and they're for this, and they're for that. And I remember even back then, I'm like, a lot of these people that are like overly religious like that are usually quite the opposite behind the scenes. They're kind of like the Jimmy Swaggarts of rock and metal is what I was thinking of, And he would tell me, how can you listen to Iron Maiden? There's the devil is on the cover. I'm like, it's no different than watching a movie where someone portrays the devil. Doesn't mean I'm worshiping the devil. Doesn't mean I believe in the devil. Doesn't have anything to do with that. It's just imagery. It's just part of the tapestry and the illusion of this band. I go, no different to what you're listening to with Stryper. And I told him, I said, what they're portraying in their image. I said, so you're telling me that they're out on the road, they're not letting the allures of the road, the temptation of the road, do anything to them? So they're foregoing groupies, they're foregoing alcohol, they're foregoing, all these other things because, based on what they're singing about, based on what they're preaching. And, as middle schoolers and high schoolers, as naive as we are, yeah, of course they are. They wouldn't be singing about that, if they weren't. And I'm thinking, okay, sure. If you say so.
Yeah, it kind of comes off as a gimmick. Maybe it was sincere and is sincere or whatever. But yeah, as much as I love Jesus, and I do, and I'm not saying that as a joke, I like my music and my Jesus separated. Okay. Except for in church, then the music should be Jesus. But outside of church, I like my music without Jesus. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with a great message in a song, But I mean, to me, it's entertainment. It's fun. It's like you know, you're going to go on a roller coaster and you want like a plastic Jesus sitting right in front of you there. Would that make it that much better? No,
Obviously it would, you know.
the Jesus coaster, dude.
Jesus-
We could be marketing this stuff. What are we doing here? We need to get out there and start building this amusement park.
There you go, Jesus World. My brothers ride the Jesus Coaster. It will help you touch the heavens and take you through the depths of hell and back out again.
Pull you right out. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, and then at the end you go through water and get baptized.
There you go.
I'm just spitballing here. I'm telling you, our brains are being wasted here talking about music when we should be out there making money, building stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we should be spending time thinking about all the things that should be in the gift shop when you walk out.
Yep.
As
too damn ethical, man. That's our problem.
Yeah.
It's way too ethical. Wait, is Jeremy crying?
Yes.
That could
Crying
be
with laughter.
Oh, okay, that's a good cry. Yeah.
Yes.
Baptized in the tears of Jeremy.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. You thought that those were the tears of the baptism after coming out of as the coaster goes through the Red Sea portion and parts the water.
Universal Studios, yeah.
See? Huh?
Yeah, we could do it better. We could do it much better.
Metal Dan has asked me several times. I used to do that on the podcast years ago. I used to do a preacher segment.
Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. And he always says, "I want you to bring the preacher back. I want you to bring the preacher back."
That's what that's about. Okay.
Yeah. I used to do it was an impersonation, which was a mix between Paul Stanley and the wrestler Dusty Rhodes. I would speak with kind of a little bit of a lisp. I would put reverb on my voice, and then I would have like a church organ playing behind me. And then I would start, sometimes it would be an intro. Sometimes it would be a, other segment. There you go. Catastrophe Canaan. Is that what you think we should name it, Jeremy? I mean, what do you think?
Canaan. Is that Canaan? Is that what he's saying?
Canaan? I don't know. I can't read.
That's the problem with this computer now. It's a much smaller screen. So, yeah, the old eyeballs, not so good. All right. So I know this isn't Ask the Host, and holy crap, we've been talking about nothing here for 36 minutes. I do have some specific questions for you. You okay with that?
I am game with that.
Okay, well, obviously, anybody who's spent any time watching you or listening to you, and if they haven't, well, it's time to catch up, kids. Victor, you're a drummer, correct?
Correct.
Was that your first instrument, or what got you into actually playing music?
My brother played the trombone in band at school, and when it came time around to picking an instrument in third grade, like they wanted each of us to join the school, the elementary school band.
Yeah,
I said, yes, I want to be Peter Criss. I want to be Eric Carr. So I will join your band, but I want to play the drums. And it was funny because I got this whole pep talk of, well, the drums isn't really an important instrument because, you're going to be playing the triangle, or you're going to have to play the ride cymbal, or you're going to be playing this, or you're going to be playing that. And I was like, okay, well, I'll learn how to play and read notes and stuff like that. But I know that at some point I'm going to get behind a drum set. So
this had to make your parents really happy, right?
Well, you got to figure at least the drum was in tune when I was beating it, as opposed to, playing some other instrument where that was totally out of tune,
Yeah, I think trombone, that would be kind of a tough one to get going on and make it sound good right away. Art pretty flaming on the trombone in his
He
day?
was he was good, and now my nephew is playing the trombone in elementary school. So, and I asked, I said, "Is he using your 40-year-old trombone?" He said, "Absolutely. He is.
Awesome.
He is playing the old trombone." So, yeah, we would bust it out and pretend to play stuff on that every now and then. But yeah, I finally got my drum set in was 87, I believe. I was in 7th grade. I had the option. Oh, I kept bugging my parents. I want a drum set. I want a drum set. I want a drum set. I'm like the kid in the old Bugs Bunny cartoon. I want an Easter egg. I want an Easter egg. No, I want a drum set. And they said, okay, well, you can have a drum set or you can go to Spain for the summer. Okay, I want the drum set.
Oh,
Are you sure you love going to Spain every year and playing, and having fun with your friends? Yep. No problem. I want a drum set. I'll go to Spain next year. And they tried talking me out for the entire year. And then finally, when it came time to buy the tickets, I was like, when are we going for my drum set? Because you gave me a choice. And I got the drum set. I missed out on going to Spain that year.
wow, your parents caved in. I can't believe they didn't figure out a way out of this.
No, they caved in. The ticket cost about as much at that time as a drum set. I ended up getting a Pearl International drum set.
Okay.
And I ended up getting a hi-hat and a ride slash crash cymbal, which is a joke because I broke that in nothing because it's so thin. And actually the snare drum that I got that I had since 3rd grade was better than the one that came with that drum set. It was a Premier snare drum.
Yeah.
So, which were hard to find in the States. Premier was a big British company, Premier Sonar, and it was difficult to find there. So that's how I started playing. And then by the time, the first thing that I learned to play was the song Ultimate Sin by Ozzy Osbourne. That intro by Randy Castillo was the first thing that I ever tried playing on the drum set. And then, I remember noodling a little bit in school. In school it was, we play jazz. We don't play rock music. I'm like, fuck is this? I was thinking, have you guys never heard of Richie Blackmore, Yngwie Malmsteen? They wear marching band jackets, Jimi Hendrix, and, I had to deal with all the jazz snobs and stuff like that. I'm like, whatever. I didn't care. But, yeah, so that got me into drumming. But, first obviously Kiss was a big influence, and Frankie Banali of Quiet Riot, because that was the first band that got me away from Kiss. I mean, I was listening to stuff that my brother had, but Quiet Riot was the first thing that I bought that wasn't Kiss. And then Motley Crue, and then Iron Maiden. So,
yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely.
So then you taught yourself to play guitar?
Yes.
I'm guessing? Yeah.
First guitar I took guitar lessons as a kid.
Oh, okay.
And on an acoustic guitar, and I wanted an electric guitar. I'm like, this is so lame. You want me to learn how to play Kiss on an acoustic? And my parents were like, well, if you get good enough on it, maybe we can buy you an electric guitar. And the guitar teacher got to the point where he was like, he's not going to learn. You're kind of wasting his time, my time, and you're wasting your money, after like 2 years of lessons. Because I wasn't really learning how to read notes. I wasn't playing anything that was fun. I wanted to learn how to play. Again, I wanted to learn how to play Kiss. I wanted to learn how to play the Stones. I wanted to learn how to play AC/DC, and I was learning how to play Kumbaya, and it was like, and the teacher was like, well, in order to learn how to play Kiss, you got to learn how to play, your rudiments. You got to learn how to play. And it was funny because when I started taking lessons, back in, I want to say 2011, 2012. My guitar teacher, the first thing he said was, forget about everything that you've ever been taught about scales or about all this stuff. He goes, you're never going to learn to play anything if that's what you're going to focus on. He said, you need to learn how to play stuff that you like playing. He goes, if you don't learn how to play what you like playing, you're never going to learn, because you're just going to sit there and dread it the whole time. It's going to be a chore and it's not going to be fun. So, and he told me, he said, that's how I learned. He said, I went through all these classes and stuff. And I told my teacher, he said, I told my teacher, I want to play like the guys in Metallica. I want to play like the guy from Pantera. And he was like, oh, well, you need to learn how to play the Mixolydian scale and the Ionian scale and the this scale and the that scale. And he said he decided not to go to class one week and sit there with the book and say, well, how does this compare to what the guys that I idolize are playing? So he decided to take apart their music and realize how the scales worked into what they were doing. But he said, had he not decided to stop going to formal training, he never would have learned that stuff, because, the mindset was, no, you can't learn songs. You can't learn how to do that stuff until you learn, it's as if you have to learn your ABCs and how to write and, all this stuff before you can move on to learning how to do stuff on your own. It just doesn't make sense. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for learning theory and that kind of stuff, understanding why things are the way they are. But I think you've hit on an important point. Anybody who has kids that want to play music, it has to be fun.
Yeah,
that goes for sports too. I mean, you know what that's all about with your kids. If they're not having fun, they're not going to want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to make things fun for them, and you can still make it fun and educational.
Yep.
Which is what I do with my students, fun and educational. So
there you go. And ensuring them that they'll die, but not from that.
Yeah, nobody's ever died in one of my classes yet. There's still time, kids. I think I told you about the one class that I taught, and there was a kid that was hard of hearing in there. So to make accommodations for him, they had like this court stenographer there that was sitting off to the side. And so they're sitting there with this little, thing, that little stenography thing. And so every time I'm talking, and when I teach a class, it's kind of like now, I just say whatever. I just go, yeah, I say a lot of stuff I shouldn't say. Which is why I said there's no recording of this class, okay? Because I don't want to find myself on YouTube saying something just ridiculous. So I would go on and on. I'd say something. I realized I probably shouldn't have said that. So I wouldn't look over at the woman there at the stenographer. I'd say, strike that from the record. And she.
So before the stenographer, this is what Brad sounded like in class. Let's see if it loads.
Say it! Exactly. What is it? He's really passionate about what I don't know. Yeah, I do a lot of yelling. Screaming. I don't stand still for even a second. I think I've taken my rock and roll stuff and taken it to the classroom. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I always love it when I get somebody, some older person that's there that gasps at something that I say. You can't say that. Well, I just did.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
This is, we found some tape of Brad on the internet teaching class.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Exactly. I was teaching this one class. It was an EMT class, and there was this dude in there in a leather jacket, and he had the whole biker kind of thing going on. and he just slept through the whole thing. He had his head down on the desk asleep for the whole thing. And I got to the part where I talk about bites and stings, and I'm talking about brown recluse, black widows, brown recluses. All of a sudden, his head shoots up, and he's like, "I'm like, okay, all right, you. I want to know what's going on in your head right now." I said, you woke up for this, so make it good." And he looks at me and he goes, "I was bit by a spider once," and then he went right back to sleep. It was unbelievable. Yeah. So one thing I've learned teaching EMT classes is that if you're ever in an accident and you knocked unconscious and you wake up and there's a guy leaning over and they say, "I'm an EMT," you say, "Don't touch me." Wait for the paramedics, okay? Bless their hearts. No, there's a lot of great EMTs out there. I've taught many good EMTs. Oh, I can tell you a great story for one of my EMT classes. So this guy that I taught at one point, he knew, because I like to tell stories. And so he called up one night at the Poison Center. He says, "Hey," he says, I got a story for you." I'm like, "Okay, what is it?" He says, "Well," he says, "we got called out, a guy unconscious. And what it turns out to be is a bunch of guys sitting around an apartment drinking. One of them passes out." Gee, that's never happened at any place you've ever been with people drinking, has it? Right. Yeah. So the guy passes out, and then these guys are sitting around trying to figure out what they should do. Well, one of the guys had seen some TV show the week before or whatever. One of the characters was a diabetic and had too much insulin and went into a coma. So he's like, maybe he's a diabetic and we need to give him sugar. So they tried to make him eat something while he's unconscious, and that didn't work. So this guy says, "Okay," so we come storming into the apartment. Here's this guy laying face down on the sofa with his pants pulled down, and here's a candy bar sticking out of this guy's ass. And I said, "Well, was it a Butterfinger?" Which,
oh my goodness.
You know how fragile those candy bars are. Johan's not going to get this. If you ever try to stick a put any pressure on a Butterfinger, it just falls apart. So,
right.
I said the beauty of it is that if he had been hypoglycemic, that actually would have worked, because he would have absorbed some of the sugar from the candy bar into his body through his butt, and it might have helped. But he was just drunk. So, yeah.
Mother of God.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so next time you eat a candy bar, you peel that wrapper down, you look at that thing, just think about that story.
Yikes.
Yeah. Yikes indeed. Okay, so you started playing drums.
Yes.
How big was this kit you got, your first kit?
5-piece.
5-piece, good. It's a good choice. I think that's pretty much the classic thing when we were kids, is a 5-piece. I mean, that's what this thing started out as, 2 mounts, 1 floor tom, right? But now all the kids are all about a 4-piece. It's like 1 mount tom, 1 floor tom.
I have always hated that.
Yeah.
To top it off, is you hear people say, "Oh, this is the John Bonham setup." No, it's not. John Bonham had it. Yeah, well, John Bonham had at least 2 floor toms, if not 3 at times. Yeah. I, as time progressed, built my own rack. So the 2 toms that are on the bass drum would actually be over to the left of the bass drum, so that, almost as if there were two double, or if there was a double bass and the toms would be in between. Although I just had a double bass pedal, I would prefer to have the toms there. It's just, to me, it feels more natural in that position than off to the side like that.
That makes sense. Well, I know the first time, and of course, Peter Criss had that huge kit at one, eventually, I think when he got into the Alive era. And, but the first time I heard Rush, this is for Johan, so wake up, Johan. 2112, whenever he would roll down the 6, 8, 10
Yeah.
toms, it was just like, oh my gosh, that is like the coolest thing I've ever heard on
Yeah,
drums. So of course that's why I have, these rototoms here, because I'm too cheap to buy actual drums, 6, 8, and 10s. But they actually sound pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
They're really cool, especially mic'd up. They got a great sound. So and I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a drummer. I love playing the drums, but it's fun to have more things to hit. I don't understand why you'd want less things to hit.
The argument with that is having to set up less things at a show.
Okay, having had to haul around drums for so many years because our drummer kept his drum set at my house. And of course, he's not coming over because I live, 30 miles away. I had to load those things up, bring them to the show, bring them in. He set them up, of course, and then tore them. And then, I had to load them back in my truck and then bring them home and then bring them back into the house. I'm like, yeah, this sucks. This really, really sucks. I mean, this drum kit here, I don't ever want to move this thing. Every time I've had to move it, it's just been it takes me forever to get it set up just the way I like it again.
Right.
And especially because I have, I don't know way too many cymbals there. So shout out to my buddy, Jason Harrison Smith, currently sponsored by PST. And he helped me out with his Zildjians and his Sabians that he wasn't using anymore. And also got me some nice PST hi-hats. So I got a lot of cymbals, and they're really nice cymbals too. I love hitting them. I just love, it's like, why would you only want 2 cymbals? Why would you only want one crash and one ride? And I mean, guys do that, and there's guys that can make a small kit sound awesome. A good drummer is going to sound good no matter what they're playing on, but it's just fun. It's fun to hit all that different stuff.
Yeah, I would at least my setup, and hopefully the next time I get to the States, I will bring my cymbals back home with me, because it will probably cost me about $300 to get them on a plane.
Yeah, they're heavy.
Yeah, whereas if I were to buy them here, it would probably cost $300 a piece.
Oh yeah, they're insanely expensive.
Oh, they're 3 times as much here than they are in the States.
Yeah,
they're a
cheap
lot
cymbals are awful. They're just they're unbearable.
Yeah, I've played, and unfortunately here, when I've played with the tribute band that I play in, I'm left to the devices of what I'm left to play with. So the cymbals are usually, each cymbal is from a different company. They're usually cheap cymbals, and I'm very particular with the sounds. I was close to buying cymbals a few years back, and I just couldn't find anything that sounded right. So I was like, yeah, if I can continue to play that, I don't like the way these cymbals sound, but at least I'm not paying for them. So hopefully one day I'll be able to bring that back. And I mean, a drum set, I was close to getting a drum set about a year ago. And I was like, well, I got other things I got to worry about right now. So I do have the electronic set behind me, which works for now. But I don't know. So someday I'll have another acoustic set here.
All right, so let's talk about sticks. Do you go for the plastic tip or wood tip?
Wood.
Okay.
Plastic tips always end up breaking unless I had the Easton A-head sticks, which were carbon fiber. The original set lasted me years that I had. Okay. They were Tommy Lee's. Until the center, the shaft sheared in 2. And then when I got my next pair after that, the guy at the music store was like, yeah, we don't carry these anymore. I'm like, well, why not? These are great. It's like, yeah, they're not as good as you think. And I realized, yeah, okay. So that those sticks lasted me like 3 years. So obviously they want you to break sticks. They don't want to have sticks that will last forever. So every subsequent pair of Easton sticks that I've owned have been shit. They've cost 30 some odd bucks each, but they break like there's no tomorrow. The tips break easy. The shaft covers break easy. So I was like, yeah, I'm going back to wood.
It gets expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, sticks. This one's a little bit shredded there. That's my hi-hat stick. While you're looking for that, what size sticks do you like?
I'll show you.
Okay.
5Bs are usually what I play.
Yep. That's what I'm sporting here. 5B.
Yeah, these are Vic Firth 5Bs.
Yep.
I really like these, which are totally different to anything you may have seen. This is coated in rubber here.
Nice.
For grip. And then this is it's the same thickness all the way down until you get to the end. These are Charlie Benante from Anthrax's metal sticks. They're a little heavier, but they're very durable. But yeah, the 5Bs are what I usually go with.
Good choice.
And these are the Eastons that see the shaft cover is shredded to hell here. The original ones that I have back home at my parents' house are not like that at all. Yeah, this one here has the tip broken off. That has the plastic tip. This has the, and the other thing too is that these are, if you're playing your own cymbals, fine, but they're heavy. They can easily break cymbals. So I was like, let me go back to the wood as well for that reason. So
cheaper to break a stick than a cymbal, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have a buddy who's a promoter, and he put on a show with a bunch of bands coming in from out of town, and they weren't bringing their drum sets, so he asked if I would drum tech and bring my drums, and I was like, okay. I mean, what could go wrong, right? But I said they're not using my cymbals,
right?
Mm-mm. They have to bring their own cymbals, so they did. The great thing that came out of that was one of the guys in one of the bands that were from Seattle. I'm trying to remember what the name of the band was. The snare I'm using right now, it's a Sonar, but it's a cheap one. It's like it cost me $88 or something, just a metal snare. I could never get it to sound good. I have this really expensive wooden snare. It's a piccolo snare, but it's a handmade wooden snare that my buddy gave me. And I'm like, well, here, you can have a choice between these two snares. And he played around with them, and he goes, I'll take this one. And I'm like, you taking the cheap one over the fancy whatever? And he messed around with that thing, and he took one of the felts from the cymbal and taped it to the head, and then tuned it and made that thing sound unbelievable. And I've been able to, I messed around with, I saw what he did, and I've learned that that's actually a good way to make a snare sound good. And so that's why I'm using that thing now. I get a really good sound out of that. You learn stuff.
Absolutely.
So even as a bass player, I can still learn stuff.
See that? Who said bass players couldn't learn things?
Drummers.
Yeah. Wow.
No. Bass players are the true musicians of the band. They're the ones that actually listen. They're true bass players anyway. They listen. Can we tell a drummer joke? Okay, so how do you get a drummer off your court?
Go ahead.
You pay him for the pizza. Thank you. I'll be here all night. Oh, come on. I know Johan laughed at that. All right. Well, we probably lost all of our audience talking about drum minutia. Although I do have to ask you about this. Okay, mounted toms. Okay, I like keeping mine angled. Of course, they keep slipping because this is a really old kit. This thing's like, I think from the mid '80s is when this thing was made, and so it's hard to keep the toms in place. But I know, like Eric Singer, he keeps his toms flat, and some other guys do too. And what is your preference?
It depends on the height of the toms. For example, Dave McLean, who's best known for playing in Machine Head and Sacred Reich, He has he places his toms slightly higher than the snare. So he's playing on top of them, so he has them flat in that case. But I usually have mine angled a bit. I remember it used to annoy me to no extent to see drummers with the toms tilted like far beyond what you have. The way that you have it is usually similar to how I would have them tilted. And I remember seeing people play um and I remember saying this to my cousin. We were seeing a local cover band here. I'm like, this guy isn't a fucking drummer. He's got the drums tilted at like 85 degrees. I'm like, how the fuck's he playing that? And he was, well, what do you know? I'm like, what do I know? I'm like, that's ridiculous. You can't. That's not easy to go around the set if they're almost flat in front of you, perpendicular.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know, and you watch Eric Singer play, and the dude's great. What can you say?
Yeah.
But I've tried doing that, and of course, I'm not that good. I just thought maybe it had something to do with how you started out playing drums. If you were like a marching band guy and used to playing, up on top of things, or I probably have really bad form. I play like this, so.
But with marching band, it's different though, because you're over top of the drums and the height matters a lot, because I ended up getting, a lot of wrist injuries because of that, because you're playing, for me being as tall as I am, I would have to like play close to my body, and it would end up, I'd be in these weird like positions. And it got to the point where I remember through marching band season, if you were playing an 8-mile parade like we did at one point in the 100-degree weather in North Carolina, hearing the judge say, "Oh yes, the drummer on the right there is not playing correctly. He's out of sync." And I'm thinking, because my wrists are flaring up and full of pain, which years later would end up being called carpal tunnel syndrome, my friend. If I'm one of the only people that's playing for the entire 8 miles, then expect there to be some sort of discomfort.
It's drummer injuries are bad, man. Okay, so real quick, right now your 5 favorite drummers and we'll go with that you've seen live. I know I didn't throw that to you earlier.
Yeah, now you're fucking with me, because
now go with whatever. Yeah, 5 favorite drummers. 5 favorite drummers. And give me an album that you would point somebody to listen to them play.
Okay. I'll give you an album and a song to listen to.
Ooh, even more specific.
Okay. Yeah, because there's some albums where there will be people that will say, "Oh, that isn't his best album." Okay, fine, but it's the playing on this track is ridiculous. So this is why I'm pointing you to it. Number 5 here would be Eric Carr while he was alive and in Kiss. The album Creatures of the Night is my all-time favorite album. A lot of that has to do because of the drum sound. The song Creatures of the Night is just ridiculous, hearing him play and just that booming loud drum set. So a song to check out would be the title track to the album Creatures of the Night. Number 4 here, I have Igor Cavalera, former drummer of Sepultura. The album is Roots, and the name of the song is Born Stubborn. Igor would do a lot of different stuff that other drummers weren't doing, because specifically on Roots, they mixed a lot of like tribal sounds with what they were doing. So he mixed stuff like samba beats, which were not common at the time. He's the first guy that I know of that mixed the samba beat with anything that's remotely close to rock music. And now everyone and their mother includes it. And if anyone remotely knows what reggaeton music is, that's the beat you hear in 150% of every reggaeton song that you've ever heard is a samba beat. So, so I mean, I liked a lot of Igor's playing at the time. I actually think that the drummer that Sepultura has now is a lot better than Igor, but we're talking about Igor 30 years ago, who, you know, as we get older, our skills diminish because it is such a physically demanding instrument. But yeah, it would be that. Number 3, somebody who you mentioned earlier, who you've seen in concert more than once, I believe, Mr. Cozy Powell.
Oh yeah.
Cozy, you know, it's funny because I kept flip-flopping songs here and bands and albums because I could easily mention something by Rainbow. I could easily mention, you know, for a while I had the song Lawmaker off of the Black Sabbath album Tear, because the song kicks off with a Cozy Powell fill, and it's a fast song, which Black Sabbath isn't known for their fast songs. So, you know, for a lot of reasons, but off of the one MSG album, one MSG studio album that he plays on, Let Sleeping Dogs Lie, there's a few things about this song that stand out to me. Just the feel in his playing, how he's playing in the pocket, and just the specific fills that he plays are just so great, and they just mesh so well with Michael Schenker's playing. Cozy had a very strong personality, so I'm sure that's why he didn't last more than one studio and one live album with Schenker. But I got to see Chris Slade, who is known for his work in The Firm and AC/DC and a ton of other things, play this live with Michael. And it it broke my heart because it was so bad. He was like the whole feel of the song was gone with how he was playing. He was playing the fills in the wrong spots. This is around the time that Michael would do a tour, and every new tour had new members in the band. So the tour before, he had Carmine Appice playing with him. Then he had Chris Slade. Then after Chris Slade, someone else came along. You know, so he was doing these 1-month tours, and every tour was a different person. So I'm assuming that Chris Slade probably had like a week to get ready for this, and probably didn't care, you know? So a lot of these guys, hey, you know, on name alone, you know, I don't need to go in and learn this stuff. You know, I'll just do it my way. And it's like, I was listening to the song and I was like, he's dragging the song. The beat just is completely off. He's playing something just left of center. I get playing different fills, but play them in the right spot, not in the middle of a verse where it doesn't make sense. You know, I don't know. So Cozy Powell.
Good choice. Yeah.
Clive Burr.
Yeah. Okay.
Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. The track is The Prisoner.
Oh, I love that song.
The intro to The Prisoner just has a feel to it. Clive was very much a feel player. I've heard Nico play the song live throughout the years, and it just does not sound the same because he doesn't have the same feel that Clive does. There's just something to Clive's playing which, you know, has a little bottom to it, has a little punk rock to it, has a little Bill Ward to it. It's chaotic in places. Nico is very regimented with his playing. So there's a lot of Clive stuff that he plays that just sounds like too stagnant to me. It sounds like too perfect, where it doesn't allow for like the breathing between notes and different things that Clive had with his playing. You know, where when you get to someone that's almost too technical and they try playing something that a field player has originally played, it doesn't come off right because they're trying to approach it from the technical side of things instead of just going with what the song kind of calls for, which is what Clive did with a lot of his playing, and the beginning to The Prisoners just, to me, is an exercise in being a field player and knowing how to differentiate between the what he's doing specifically with his foot with the bass drum.
But you're not such a snob that you're going to say I can't stand listening to them play it with Nico.
No, it
Good.
just doesn't sound the same.
No, I agree with him. There's people like that though. It's like,
right.
Iron Maiden without Clive Burr, I can't listen to it.
That's stupid. That's just plain.
Thank you.
I'm just glad that they're playing that song, and I'm glad to hear their interpretation. The only time that something like that has ever happened to me, and because I was thinking, I had like a list of other songs and drummers and stuff, and I'm like, no, but I'm going to go with these 5.
Good choice.
And Anton Fig on the song "Rip It Out" on the First Days Freely solo album, he has that section with the fills before the solo. Okay. When Anton left the band and they brought in Jamie Oldacre, and if you read Ace's biography, he says, "Oh, yeah, he was playing for Eric Clapton, so I figured he was good enough for my band."
Good impression, by the way.
Oldacre, God rest his soul, sucked playing that. His fills were so bland and bad that I was like, please, Harry Carey. No, it's terrible. This is going through my heart right now. No, because all he did were some really sloppy fills on a snare, and I'm thinking, fucking Anton Fig's original solo is him going off on all the toms and the cymbals, and he's adding double bass, and he's doing all these different really dynamic things to the song. It's adding to the song. And just hearing Jamie Oldacre play that, I remember I can't wait to see the Live +4 video because I want to see it live. I want to see what these songs sound like live with Ace's current band. And I was like, this is so bad. This is just heartbreaking. So,
isn't it cool though that a drummer could do something on an album that is that much of the song that without it, it's tough to, it's like, I mean, you need that. I know what you're talking about, man. I love that drum break in there.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Peter Criss, his drum break in Lover All I Can.
Yes.
It's nothing really super technical or whatever. Plus, I love the sound of those toms on that recording. I just love it, man. But you got to play that. It's got to be played like that, or else it's just like, Another great song like that. And I'm sorry, I'm hijacking your list here for a second. Is what do I think? Oh, Fairies Wear Boots, Black Sabbath. And I've heard so many drummers play that, and the drum breaks in there. And guys will play it in time and everything, but it's not the same as Bill Ward. It's just I've never heard anybody do it like where that was really badass. And I mean, you think about Tommy Aldrich. I mean, that guy is unbelievable. He's on my top 5 list. And even though what he does is great, it's just like you want that original drum part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing with I think, and this is how my playing has changed over the years, is that I think for the most part, a lot of drummers want to prove that they deserve to be there. So there's one thing where you want to service the song, fit into the band, and do what's best for that position and for that song. And then there's another thing where you just want to prove just how ridiculously talented you are. It's years ago at an awards gala, we covered a Clutch song called Prophets of Doom. And there's a section where I had to solo, and I was like, I'm not going to play this note for note like this guy because we are two completely different style drummers. But I'm going to try to do my interpretation without going out there and saying, "Oh, look at how badass I am." No, I want to do it within the confines of the song, so it fits the song. And because of how I grew up playing, a lot of it is derivative of John Bonham or of Bill Ward or of Peter Criss or a Cozy Powell or people like this. I've expanded my repertoire as time goes by, but I've always tried to do what's right for the songs. When I play in the Misfits tribute band that I play in, that's not something that's overly known for its drumming. It's known for, it's a punk band. They became more of a metal band in the 90s with their Resurrection lineup, but I try to focus on making the song as good as I can, and doing what I can to service the song, not going out of my way. And, oh, look, I'm going to add this ridiculous double bass drum fill here. No, I hardly use any double bass when I play with that stuff, because the original didn't have it. Maybe like if it's the end of a song and we're like going into something else, or the song ends there, it's one of these things where you're hitting the cymbals and the double bass to try to build, to the end of the song. That's about it. I mean, it's uncalled for in certain things. That's what I think the problem is. When we talked about in the Patreon group, the first single off of the Tony Martin album.
Yeah.
And I thought that the song sounded good, but I thought that the drumming was way over the top. Like, again, I thought, if Cozy Powell was playing this, if this was a Black Sabbath song with Tony Martin and Cozy Powell, Cozy would have never tried to squeeze in every single note possible in there. The song would have, the song would have to call for certain things for Cozy to add. Cozy always added tremendous fills in the right spot. He always played what was best for the songs, and as a result was known as a monster player as well. He did what needed to take the song to the next level. But he didn't have to go out and play, add 64th beats to everything that he was playing. He didn't have to play 220 beats per minute, every song. So that's why, to me, and I get it, it's become, almost like an arms race where, it isn't metal if you're not playing this fast, you're not adding these many beats, or you're not adding these, what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of shit is put together in the studio with a computer. A drummer isn't actually playing on it. And nowadays there are a lot of live drummers who aren't actually live, who are miming to their computer.
Oh boy.
So, because they can't pull a lot of the stuff off live. But for me, my number one song.
Okay. Number one, kids.
Number one.
Right,
I got to pull the drumstick out. The Charlie Benante drumstick once again.
Oh yeah, Charlie.
Charlie Benante, Anthrax. The album is "We've Come for You All." It's the last album with John Bush on it. Yeah. There's a track called "Nobody Knows Anything." The drumming is just ridiculous. I know that a lot of people, when they talk about, for example, the Big Four of thrash, they always say, "Oh, Lombardo, Dave Lombardo by far was the best drummer." Dave Lombardo has his distinct sound, his distinct feel, a distinct power to his playing. But Charlie always played stuff that was outside of the box, that was different to what others were doing. So that's why I always gravitated to Charlie's playing. And, as the years went by, I remember learning that Charlie wrote a lot of the music. He was a great guitarist in his own right, a great pianist in his own right. So he composed a lot of the music, which, back then was like, drummers don't write anything. Drummers don't write anything. And it's like, well, you look at it. Charlie wrote stuff. Tommy Lee wrote stuff. John Bonham wrote stuff. Bill Ward wrote stuff. So there are some really big name drummers that, yes, have written a lot of music that you've listened to. Unfortunately, that's few and far between. But Charlie's just a ridiculous player that, has kind of created his own style. And I honestly don't think that within those drummers gets the recognition that he deserves. With that big four, I mean, Gar Samuelson in Megadeth. He was the thrash version of Peter Criss because he added a lot of jazz and a lot of swing to his playing. You have Lars Ulrich, who all these years later, a lot of people bitch about him. Oh, well, he sucks live, or he does this, or he does that. I had this discussion not too long ago. I posted it on Patreon. They said, well, Lars is by far the worst drummer out of the big four. Like, well, Lars is probably known more than any of the other drummers because he sold more albums. He's written, outside of 2 songs, he's co-written every Metallica song ever. So just think of that. What he's composed, what he's arranged, what he's played on. So, you can't just think about 200 million notes. You have to think about what that drummer brings to the table and what he does for a song. There are songs that call for 1 million beats per second. There are a lot that do not. So, so for me, my 5 that I listed there were Eric Carr, Igor Cavalera, Cozy Powell, Clive Burr, and Charlie Benante.
It's a strong list. I remember you talking about that Anthrax song, I don't know, probably well over a year ago on some other discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually play that song on Yarg Metal. So
there you go.
So yeah, if you're listening to this and you haven't checked out Yarg Metal, go to yargmetal.com, download the Yarg Metal app, listen. You might hear that song. And you might hear, well, I can guarantee you will hear every one of these drummers that Victor has mentioned, because they're all on there. And
awesome.
As well as a bunch of other great drummers too.
Absolutely.
I'll give you my top five, and it's tough. It's tough to only pick 5, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good problem to have. And of course, I mentioned Cozy as well, but of course, seeing him live, being my first exposure to him, that's where I fell in love with him. Mm-hmm. One thing that I thought was really cool, the way he set up his drums, he had all his cymbals on the sides, none in the middle.
Right.
So you're looking at Cozy Powell up there playing, had all the toms and everything, but the way he could go through his cymbals so fast and hit them all, each with a kick beat, it was like a magic trick watching him do that. It was unbelievable. But just his playing. I mean, he played for the song. He really made that band for me.
Right.
And of course, Dio singing, those two points. So I'm going to go with On Stage for my album for listening to him, and listen to the lead track, Kill the King. His drumming on it is just brilliant, fantastic. His thing where he does the and then the triplet, at the end of the tom thing, that to me was like a classic Cozy thing that he would just throw in constantly, and it's just a great sound. So love that. Probably one of the first drummers that I ever saw that I just like, I can't stop watching this guy play is Denny Kamasi. Saw him with Montrose. He did a lot with Sammy Hagar as well, but Montrose is where I saw him first, and then he later ended up back with Ronnie Montrose in Gamma. And so I'm going to go with, the 2 albums actually I guess 3 albums he did, but the 2 best ones are Gamma 2 and Gamma 3. But I'm going to go with Gamma 3 and the very first song on there, What's Gone and Is Gone. The drums on that, his cymbal work is so unbelievable to me. I mean, just watching the way he hits the cymbal and gets the sound out of it. And if you listen to his hi-hat work on that, where he's so precise about, it's really tight here, it's just a little bit open here, a little more open here. And he had such control over that. And of course he's using rototoms on the Gamma 3 album. So I love that sound as well. That's very cool. So you got to listen to that song. Al Bouchard, one of the very first concert I saw was Boyster Cult. And a lot of people will knock his drumming, but I love watching him play, for one thing. The dude just was a monster player. But their second album, Tyranny Mutation, listen to the Red and the Black. Okay, first song, but the whole album, he's really tearing it up. And again, his hi-hat work, the stuff that he does, you know, where he's doing fills, where he's throwing little hi-hat close stuff in there, just incredible work. Nigel Glockler, since I'm wearing the Saxon shirt, I have to go with Nigel. Great guy too, by the way. If you ever get to chat with him, he is completely brilliant. The Power and the Glory was the first album he did with them, and he plays his ass off on that. And I actually asked him that. I said, you know, knowing what I know from being in the studio, I would have expected the producer to be like, okay, slow down here, Chief. You know, we're just recording the song here. This isn't a drum solo. You talk about overplaying. I mean, he's dangerously close to overplaying on that album. He is, I mean, just toms everywhere, fills everywhere, double bass, but yet it fits everything. And so let's just go with This Town Knows How to Rock as a good one for you to listen to him play on that, which that song is like a drum solo with a song built around it. And also that is his favorite song to play live. I just remembered that in my interview. I asked those guys, I asked him and Paul Quinn, I said, when you look at the set list, what song do you say, oh crap, I really don't want to play that song? And they actually answered that. I figured there's no way they're going to answer this, right? Nobody wants to say that because they're not the ones picking the list, but they both did. I can't remember what song he said now, but I'm gonna have to dig that out. But it was pretty hilarious. Paul Quinn, he said Motorcycle Man. He's like, oh, I've played that so many times, I just can't play it anymore. And of course, it wasn't on the set list that night because I interviewed him before the show, and Biff called it out off the set list. And I just looked at Paul, and he's like, okay. And he tore, you know what? He tore it up, man. He nailed, he killed it. That's a true professional too. It's like a song I don't really care about playing anymore, but yet when I do play it, I play my ass off. And that's, boys and girls out there who are musicians, that's the kind of musician you want to be. If you don't like the song, you still play your ass off on it. Don't be that guy in the band. It's like, I'm going to destroy this song, so we won't play it anymore. And then Tommy Aldridge is my next choice. Saw him several times with Pat Travers, and I'm going to go with the Go For What You Know, the live album, and Make No Difference. We're going to go with that, the last song on there, which starts off with a huge double kick intro. And just the stuff he does on that, and the way he builds each verse, the drum part is different in each verse, and it gets a little bit stronger each one. And then the last one, he's actually bringing in the double kick with the hi-hat. And Tommy Aldridge, amazing. I mean, it's not just about twirling either. Okay, it's one thing, which I can't do this. I'm not a drummer. It's one thing to be able to twirl your sticks, but it's another thing to be able to really work it in. And his cymbal grabs, I could watch that guy play forever. See, you got it. You're the real deal. There you go. There's my top 5 list.
Tommy,
throw Simon Phillips in there, but I kicked him out for Tommy Aldridge.
Tommy Aldridge is someone who is highly influential, but I don't think gets the recognition he deserves, because I think he influenced a lot of people, especially in the 80s. I remember when I interviewed Gene Hoglan, he talked about hearing a Bark at the Moon for the first time. And he said,
"Keep talking. I have to go get a dog that's in a dangerous area."
Yes. He talked about the fact that that once he heard the song Bark at the Moon, he knew that it was Tommy Aldridge playing. He said, I was such a huge fan of Tommy's playing that I knew it was him. And I see the video and it's Carmine. He goes, there's no way that's Carmine playing. He goes, okay, well, I don't know, maybe it is. And he said, I saw the video, and when the big drum fill comes up, Carmine just starts twirling his sticks. And he's like, he goes, yeah, that's Tommy Aldridge. That's not Carmine. Carmine can't play that fill the same way. So that's why he's not doing it in the video. So I found that to be funny. And another guy that I think doesn't get enough credit because he's overshadowed by his brother and the lead singer of the band is Alex Van Halen. Alex Van Halen is, I think, somebody who is ridiculously influential on people because of, so many people wanted to sound like Eddie or pretend to be David Lee Roth without realizing it. When you're doing those styles of songs, people are playing like Alex. A lot of double bass, if you think about it, Alex is probably the first double bass player that got really, really big, that was known for his playing and whatnot. And of course now Carmine is saying, oh well, that's we influenced the Van Halen brothers playing. I'm like, really? Yeah, because the song by Cactus, this song directly influenced Eruption. And I listened to it and I'm like, oh wow, so that intro where it's just the drum fill and then just the cymbal where he's going off on the cymbal and the double bass, and then Eddie starts the soloing. I'm like, no one remembers the intro. People remembered Eddie's fucking solo, nobody remembers. And I'm thinking, besides that sounds more to me like your classic, like Steve Miller band or whatever from back in the day when they were in, big band songs where they were, the beginning of some of these songs. I thought that it borrowed from that, and the fact that their father played in a big band, that it came from that more than something like that. And then I forget what the other song was. Oh, no. They admitted to this directly influencing Hot for Teacher. The drum beat is almost the same. Has nothing to do the one with the other.
Yeah, that's such a crazy drum beat in that song. I had somebody tell me once, this is a long time ago, and they said, I think what gives Van Halen their sound is actually Alex's snare. And I never really thought about that, but you're right. It is a very distinct snare sound that's pretty consistent, at least over the first, 4 or 5 albums. I think the worst thing they did was, in the Hagar years when he started going to the fake drums, it just kind of like, But yeah, his drum sound was really good.
Yeah, well, he changed for 5150. He changed, and then for unlawful carnal knowledge, he changed the snare sound because they got Andy Johns to produce that, and he was the guy who always mic'd up John Bonham's set, and he wanted to sound like Bonham's, so the snare and everything sounds completely different on that album. But yeah, even when he went to the electronic drums and everything else, I mean, it's his distinct style and feel.
Yeah.
A lot of people mistake that, oh well, who's the best drummer? Who's the best? Well, each person has their own style because everyone has their own heartbeat, their own blood, their own fingers, their own everything. Everyone's clock is slightly different, and as much as you want to get as close to the original as possible, and there are people that can do it sometimes, but then when they have to write on their own and sound like that person, they can't do it. That's last year I think it was, or maybe the year before that, I had Monty Pittman on, who studied at Randy Rhoads' mother's place. And he has a song called Double-Edged Sword. And when he's soloing, it sounds like Randy Rhoads soloing under the premise of his song. Tracy Guns, who's also studied there as well. Tracy does certain things that are very Randy Rhoads-like. Without trying to sound, without trying to completely glom the Randy Rhoads thing, he's adding different arpeggios and progressions that are similar to what Randy did. So you hear that and you're like, oh wow, that comes from that. That's the influence. So to me, that's it's cool to hear that when somebody can take an influence and make it sound like something else without, some of the videos that I do post on Patreon, they're not only trying to sound like the bands, but they're dressing like them, and they're But
I don't know. For me, as far as like who's best and all that, I can't really say how good anybody is until I actually play with them.
Right.
then you really find out what they're all about. Because I mean, they might be able to really play stuff really fast or really crazy things, but yet as a musician, they're really tough to play with because they just don't have a feel.
Right.
To me, that's more important. That's something you really can't teach as well as how to do scales really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, there's drummers I've played with that it's just like you're playing with a machine. You're not playing with somebody who's feeling it. And yeah, same thing with guitar players. So there you go.
A funnest experience like that was that I went to. There was a friend of mine who was putting a cover band together, and I needed to go meet the singer of the band. And the first thing he says to me, he goes, "Don't look at his hair." I'm like, well, "Why not?" He's like, "Well, it's not real." Like, what do you mean? It's like, he wears wigs. Like, what do you mean he wears wigs? He's like, we have to show up when he tells us, because if not, he's not ready. I'm like, well, what do you mean he's not ready? So we showed up one day, like out of the blue. We saw him, like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Holy shit, he's wearing a different fucking rug. Oh my God." So he had like his short, like business, like look. And then when we showed up to play, he had his hair looked like Nigel from Spinal Tap. He was wearing like short shorts and a tank top, and he was like, "Dude, I saved up all these bras that were thrown up on stage from when I played in the other band. We're gonna put this all over the drum set, and we're gonna do this and that." Like, okay, well, what song do you want to play? Let's play Love Song by Tesla. And all he wanted to play was ballads. And I was like, yeah, I'm not into this. And it was funny because I was like, all right, well, I'll do backing vocals for you. And he was like, well, you got to keep the vocals down lower. They can't be as loud as my vocals. I'm like, well, then fucking turn my mic down. This is how I sing. What do you want me to do? It's just crazy. Well, I get it. You're a good singer, but you can't be overshadowing me. I'm like, all right, well, just trying to do what I can. So
yeah, tough times.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's tough to find people who are good, but also fun to be with as well.
Yeah, because at this stage of the game, if it's not fun, then why are you doing it?
Exactly.
So
that should be your motto for life. If it ain't fun, why are we doing it? Unless you're getting paid, and it's like, well, okay, yeah.
Then it's fun when you're going to the bank.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do stuff that isn't fun. That's why it's called work, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, we are going to be wrapping things up here. As usual, we get some cool stories out of Brad. We got plenty of music talk as well.
And I teased people about the tuna fish sandwich story, but it's kind of a long one, so we're going to save that for the next time I'm on.
The next time you're on, you're going to be talking about Rush.
Okay, I can't tell tuna fish story during Rush, so the next time I'm on is just you and me.
Yes, the next solo appearance.
Yeah, it's a really good story.
We'll save it for next month. There you go.
Yeah. So it's a great story for Johan since it involves food. A guy who thinks he has food poisoning.
Yes.
So.
Excellent. So, on that note, we are leaving you with a cliffhanger here.
That's right.
Until the next Yarg episode. Thanks everyone who is in the chat. Thanks everyone who is watching or listening to the replay. We will see you next time right here on the Signals from Mars live stream.
Keep rocking, everybody.
There you go. All right, guys. See you.